We are well underway here on the repairs to the saw. Got the table all cleaned up, got our measurements done. There's our contact points, shiny. Still pretty dirty. Every time you touch it, you get crap all over your fingers. There's our blade guide parts. You can see how gouged up and disgusting they are. It's like people failed to use or didn't care to use the actual set screws and just crank on them really hard with a wrench or something. I went ahead and milled these dovetail things. I guess they're not actually dovetails, but anyway, these guys were all chewed up, and I went ahead and milled the opposite side. That was just kind of hand ground from the factory. Got some parts cleaned up. There's our old fence pieces, the original works angle plate. There's our original Heinrich vise, and here's the brand new one. So that is cool, shiny. And here is all our tool steel, although it's not really tool steel, 4142 pre-hard ground. And it is all cut to size on the saw, and then I went ahead and milled all the ends. So these parts are basically ready for holes to be drilled, and a couple of them may need some slots and stuff like that. Here is our replacement for one of the blade guides. Here's another one for the blade guide. And then we've got some casters, a new V-belt, and 2 new bandsaw blades. So the last thing we're waiting on is a new motor. So I ordered a brand new motor from Leeson Electric. It's a farm duty motor that's totally enclosed, fan cooled, and should be just about exactly what we need. It's going to take a little bit of a modification to get it actually mounted on the saw because of the gearbox sticking down in the way, but that's totally doable. So now I think the next thing we need to get done is to put this table over on the mill table and try and indicate it in, and then mill this back face here so that it's 90 degrees to the top of the table. It's going to be a little bit more annoying, but I think I'm going to do this in 2 setups because I've got to get all the way down to mill out those sections, or this throat section. But at the same time, I want maximum rigidity to cut all the way across the back there. So I think I'll just keep everything flat on the table to mill the back, and then we'll set up again and maybe even turn it 90 degrees to cut the throat out and then true up both of these sides. We'll see how it goes on the first one anyway. To help with clamping force, decided I'd grab this piece of A2 I'm going to use this to turn into quick change tool blocks. And because it's just about the right length, 2.5 inches square, or 2 inches by 2.5, I guess. It's nice and stiff and heavy, so hopefully that'll keep down any vibrations that the middle of the table might experience with the cutter going by it. After quite a bit of back and forth, I think what I'm going to do is change plans a bit and use the 2 mounting screw holes as a reference. And when I put the parallel up against that, I'm within about 10 thousandths compared to my 2 thousandths along the casting. So I think they probably did use the screw holes as a starting point or as a reference to actually machine the slot where the blade runs. So anyway, let's go ahead and just make true to that. This is the longest parallel that I've got, and I've just got a little copper shim under there so it doesn't tilt down because this is lower. And Let's preload that to 0. Okay. Okay, that's about 1. This has been a huge pain in the butt. Knew it would be, but doesn't make it any more fun. So we are going to call this our reference surface. And now let's get this out of the way and we'll clamp down the big piece of tool steel across the front here. Give us a little bit more downward pressure on the whole thing. I think it's finally time to pull the trigger. I know I'm going to get some questions about stick out, thinking that I'm just not using the full rigidity of this tool. This is a 3/4 inch solid carbide end mill and it's necked down. So I've got it all the way into the collet that it can go. So just FYI, this diameter is smaller than the shank diameter. Okay, before we take this setup down, I want to go ahead and give myself a something to go off of. All right, looks pretty good. I had to take off quite a bit of material. I was not too pleased with how much had to come off in order to true things up, so that's why there's still a shallow spot on this end. I just didn't want to go so far that I'm even thinner on that back rib. One of the things I've been thinking about is how to locate the new channel or the center of it. And really the only option for me is I could just kind of guess and try to get close to that and perhaps make it a little bit adjustable. But the one reference surface I have, a reference point, is the bore that the original swivel vise, the bottom of it has a pin on it. So it fits into this hole. So what I did is grabbed a 503 gauge pen, it's just over a half-inch hole, and then used my longest skinny edge finder. And I couldn't quite get to the center line of the pin, but I basically measured in the same spot on both sides by using my DRO where the Y is, and just made sure I was at 0 on that on both sides. So I was probably, you know, around the front just a little bit, but I think I got a good reading. So we're now in the center of the pinhole, and that'll basically tell us where we need to make our new slot, basically. Almost all the way cleaned up, just this one little spot where the blade really got sideways at one time. This is 25 thousandths per step over at about 1800 RPM. Gotten quite a few passes done here. And some Bozo insurance. I've taken a couple of 200 thousandth gauge blocks and my 2 insert plates, and just use some pinstriping tape to keep them together. Okay, there's just our total diameter, or our total space that we need to mill out. So this gap for the saw blade to travel down is basically what Robin Renzetti has on his roll-in saw. He's got 3/16, so 187.5. Anyway, there's my little insurance provider letting me know that I've still got plenty to go, just trying to watch the DRO as I step over and not go too nuts on my cuts. 660, 661. That is good. So my target was 1 inch 708. Getting awfully close. I think what we'll do is go ahead and leave ourselves about 10 thousandths on either side. And that way when we come and clean up this end, we can do one full length pass to clean up both sides so that they are consistent. I don't have a little dip or anything from the cutter dwelling from getting into a little spot, so just mill off a little bit more. I think that's gonna do it. I went ahead and took a couple of minutes and made some mostly flat sides for me to drill through for my support pieces, and got this thing fairly clean and tidy. I'm not sad about that at all. It came out pretty well. And my width is within a couple of hairs of being absolutely perfect. And it's very parallel from one end to the other, which is really nice. So I'm gonna think for a few minutes, and if I can't think of anything else that it needs to stay set up for, then we'll go ahead and take it out and work on the next step.